Hello, class. We are starting again with the science lesson. We'll do some review and then we'll go on. We don't have a lot to cover because we actually covered a little extra. If you noticed in some of the other videos, we covered a few extra pages than you actually had to read. And so you were learning ahead a little bit so that you are ready now. So we can start out with some of these flowers. I don't know if that will do all of them, but you see if we can do some of them. Take the rubber band off. And what is that? Did you say the pitcher plant? Do you see how it looks like a pitcher? When we say it like holds water, see? Think of that like a pitcher that fills up with water and you can pour it out. The pitcher plant. What's that? All right. You said goldenrod. You are right. And the next one? Good. Daisy. What else? Did you say petunia? What's that one? What's that one? Fireweed. What's that one again? Fireweed. I feel like not everyone had that one. What's that? The dahlia or dahlia. What's that? Looks similar to another one, so don't get them confused. Chicory, chicory. Notice that this one is different than the aster. Some thought it was asked to see the petals, how they're a little more squared off, straight on there. So chicory. Good job, pansy. What's that? And what rhymes with pansy? Tansy. Pansy and tansy. What's that one? That one carefully. Ironweed. Honeysuckle. Wild rose. Dogwood. Or if we're talking about the flower, the flowering dogwood. Hyacinth. Think that it blooms high. Hyacinth. The jewelweed. Did you say Mayflower or Trailing arbutus? We'll stick with Mayflower. That's the one that we've been saying. How about that one? I'll give you a clue here. That's right. The cardinal flower. You like that? That one is the aster. Then we have the iris, sometimes called the blue flag. What's that one? We said last time that it's the prairie lily or western red lily. And then we have the what? The white trillium. And we'll pause there and do some more the next time. The other video had all of them. We'll just do a few each time though. And then you could always go back to the other one if you want to do all of them. Hey, look. What's this bird? We know that one. The cardinal is correct. And the, yes, the scissor-tail flycatcher. Long scissors on his tail. From the very beginning, we had the robin is correct. And no, it's not called the yellowbird. Some of you called it the yellowbird. It is yellow, but not just yellow. The meadowlark, known for making nests in fields rather than trees. The mockingbird, did you say that? We could say this is a yellowbird too. It's another word for yellow. Sometimes we say the word gold for a kind of yellow, gold. Goldfinch. The finch are seed eaters. Notice he's standing on what we often consider weeds, weedy areas. In fact, I was hoping it would say, here we go, you can actually read it. The thistle, which he's standing on, and dandelion are both what many would consider weeds, but he loves to eat the seeds and they pop open of both of those. So good to know. How about some review from last time? You ready? Define these terms. Dormant. Dormant means what? Yes, did you say alive but not growing? Right? Dormant, he's alive but not growing. How about germinate? Germinate means to sprout, right? To sprout, to germinate. What things must a seed have in order to germinate? There are actually 3 things, and you need to remember these 3 things. I'd write these 3 things down. 3 things a seed must have. Number 1, it must have, yes, water. You must have water for a seed to sprout or germinate. What else must you have? You must have oxygen. You must have oxygen for it to sprout. If there's no oxygen, it's not going to sprout. It needs air. And then you must have the right temperature. So I could water it all day long and all night long. I could have oxygen to it, but if it's not the right temperature, it will not sprout. That's why some seeds might be dormant for quite a while, and then suddenly in the spring they sprout because then it's the right temperature. You know, some seeds sprout sooner because their germination temperature is maybe a lower temperature or higher temperature. What part of the seed dies when the seed germinates? It's called the, did you say seed coat? If you did, you are correct. And because it's finished its job, the answer to why it doesn't need it anymore, it's finished its job. What is the first root which the plant sends out called? It's called the primary root. Primary root. Some people call elementary school primary school, so it's like the first years of school. So that might help you if you can think of that. Primary root, the first root, and then the other ones grow off of that. And then we went on, we talked about poisonous plants last time, and we talked about all these different ones and the different parts. So you've read that and know what that's called. You know, what are the different ones called? The dumb cane or Dieffenbachia, the philodendron, the hyacinth that we know from our car, don't we? The azaleas, okay? And we talked about irises that you might see growing in a garden. Holly, we're familiar with holly. We're familiar with the berries as well as the leaves. Maybe at Christmas time even, when a lot of other things aren't around in the winter, you can still see those because they're evergreen. We have the rhubarb, do not eat the leaves. Tomatoes also don't eat the leaves or stems. Potatoes, again, leaves, stems, we eat just the root of that one. And mushrooms, of course, many are poisonous, so we want to be careful about that they're the right kind. Leaves of 3, let it be. Poison ivy, poison oak. Notice that the poison oak has a little more glossy, shiny leaf to it, and that can help you to know. Slightly different color. We went on and talked about nicotine and tobacco and how horrible it is for your health, and that as a young person, decide now you won't start, and then you won't have to stop. And we're going to go on and talk about some beneficial plants today. Beneficial meaning helpful and beautiful is what it says here, but also beneficial. The beneficial means it's helpful. And so plants for good health. You know, a lot of plants are used in medicine, and that's one of the things that you'll read about on this page. On page 69 is where I'm at, page 69. And they are used way back. Think of the very beginning of our country, even before Europeans came to our country. The Native Americans were here first, weren't they? And they were using many plants as medicine. And even today, different places. And a lot of people are actually going back to some of those old ways of treating the body. Plants are highly nutritious. So even before you need medicine, if you eat a lot of plants, guess what? You'll be in better health. So you don't need the medicine as much, actually. It's highly nutrition. Any green plant that's edible, of course, it isn't poisonous, but most all green plants are highly nutritious. Highly nutritious. I mentioned the other day, even something that we might consider a weed. A lot of weeds, you can actually eat them and they're good for you. They're highly nutritious for your body. Much more nutritious than probably most of the foods that we eat. And so you can go out there, you can eat clover. Did you know you can put that in a salad? As strange as you might think that is, highly nutritious. Why do you think the rabbits are after them so much? It's good for them. And it's good for us too, actually. You can eat dandelions. You can eat the leaves of dandelions, even though they're quite bitter. The bitter greens tend to be some of the most helpful foods your body can ever ingest. Wow, it mentions some other things here. That was just extra. Oh, they went and they started looking at different tree barks, and the Indians would take those and use it for things like to heal arthritis. And even what we think of as aspirin was a chemical that's used in aspirin was actually in this bark that they were using. And so they discovered it first, and it was wonderful. It helped pain. In my book, I've underlined something. Look, in 1928, Sir Alexander Fleming, a British scientist, discovered penicillin, a life-saving antibiotic that is produced from a green mold. It was a green mold. And they took that green mold and they took a part of it, and then we called it penicillin. It's called, let's see, it contains a chlorophyll because the green substance in the plant is chlorophyll, even though it's not a true green plant. Okay, it's actually a type of fungus, which a fungus, the plant world, you can divide it into the actual true plants and fungus or fungi. And so like mushrooms and those kind of things, growing on the side of a tree or in the ground are fungi. And so they're a little different. They grow, instead of growing from seeds, they grow from something called spores that we may get into later. But fungi are plants that do not contain chlorophyll and cannot make their own food. So that's the main difference there too. They're not making their own food. So for example, like mushrooms are one kind of fungi with which you are familiar. Many kinds of fungi are valuable to man. The mold that produces penicillin is only one of them. So because they aren't making their own food, they tend to grow on other things. Like you often see a mushroom growing on a log or the side of a tree, right? And so they're using nutrients from something else. You say, well, I see it in the ground too. Yeah, and there's leaves and other things that that they're growing from too. But fungi, fungus, what's interesting about those two words, fungus is singular, fungi or fungi, for it pronounced both ways, is the plural. And that's the word you'll hear most of the time, fungi or fungi. Because it's more than one, there's usually thousands or millions of them, of those spores. So penicillin is actually made from a fungus, okay? This green mold. Think of mold that's growing on bread. You've often seen that or heard of that. Again, it's growing off of something else, isn't it? It's not growing from it. They're little spores, but they're not making their own food, are they? The best way you can use plants for good health is to eat a balanced diet. When we do our health book, we'll get into this too. You can actually use these good plants that are packed with vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B and E and K and A. I don't think it says A there, but every time you eat spinach, you're eating lots of vitamin A, and you're getting potassium and many other good nutrients. And vitamin K, you're definitely getting in there too. So when you eat the right foods, you are actually preventing diseases because of the great nutrition you're getting in your body that your body needs. And disease is often caused by a lack of something, not getting what you do need, or something bad getting in that you don't want. And some plants that you eat actually fight bad things from getting in too, like broccoli is highly important for you. It cleanses your liver. Did you know that? It actually can fight certain kinds of cancer, broccoli. So just as simple as when your parents say, eat your fruits and vegetables, that is the #1 advice for good health. So lots of good plants for your body. What else can we do? Other important uses. Many shelters are made of plant material. So wooden houses, canvas tents, grass huts, they're made from plants. And clothing is made from plant fibers, especially originally. Now we have some synthetic man-made fibers now, but usually there's a blend of some together. So cotton, that's a natural fiber. It's a plant that grows in the ground, isn't it? Wool is not a plant, but it is a natural material that comes from the sheep, doesn't it? And the sheep depend on the plants to live. And so what's making all that wool? The nutrition of the sheep eating the plants. And then their body can take that to produce the wool. Silk from certain kinds of moths that eat the mulberry leaves, and they can produce the silk, and they spin this silk to make these, they're, well, we'll take it. Actually, the Chinese were known for the first ones to do that and to make the silk from what the moths produced. And who would have thought that? Such a fine fiber, and they blend it with other natural fibers now today. Well, it's great. So clothing is made from plant. Flax is another one, and linen. Okay, that's an expensive fiber, but again, taken from plants. You can actually take flax and actually, it is a long process, but you can actually get fibers, and then from the fibers, you weave the fibers together to make cloth. And they dry them and they beat them, and they make little threads from them. Then from all those threads put together on the loom, and finally it's a long process. Now we have many machines that do that, fast machines. So we also have plants for beauty. I mean, just for beauty's sake, God put all these plants in the world. I mean, he could have made them all make seeds without having any kind of pretty flower, but he said, you know what? I think God wanted us to enjoy and see the beauty that he made around us, from the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, and all of those wonderful things that he made for us to enjoy. Everything from the roses and the white lilies to the beautiful golden daffodils, green meadows, skies full of stars, and all these green fir trees and spruce trees and all of these colors. God did that. And God made the apple blossoms to bloom and to produce the apples this time of year, actually. And we can just enjoy many of these things that God has done. Even the oak trees and the mosses are beautiful in their own way. And when you put all of them together in a scene, it's the most beautiful of all. Maybe you see an oak tree right before you, and in the background, maybe you see an evergreen tree with green meadows. And then you see flowers along the way, all different colors of the rainbow. And the scene that is created with maybe an animal climbing the tree like a squirrel, and the beautiful colors and splendor of what God has done shows us that he is great and he is mighty. And so read the rest of this, talking about pollen, and then the pollen that the plants produce, and it grows and it makes more. And it's just this ever-going cycle of life, isn't it? From the seed to the plant, to the flower, to the seed again through pollination. What life-saving antibiotic is produced from a green mold? Who was listening? Did you say penicillin? Everyone say penicillin. Maybe you had a hard time saying that one. Penicillin. Excuse me, penicillin. Why are molds and other fungi not able to make their own food? Why aren't they able to make their own food? They do not have a certain thing in them to make their own food. What is it in plants that makes them able to make their own food through photosynthesis? Yes, it's the chlorophyll. They do not have the chlorophyll to make their own food. How can you best use plants to stay healthy? How can you best eat or use plants to, I started to say it, what is it? How can you best use plants to stay healthy? The number one thing you can do is you can eat healthful foods, right? Or eat a well-balanced diet is how you can do that. Name 2 other uses for plants. What are 2 other uses you can use for plants? Well, you can use plants for shelter. You can use plants for clothing that we talked about. You can use plants for many things. You could have even said paper, right? Some other important uses for plants like we talked about. You can use plants for medicine, right? Any of those. Write a sentence describing a plant that you think is especially beautiful. We don't have to do that one right now, but later on you might do that. And so you can think of a sentence for that one. Maybe you can think of a plant that's especially beautiful, or you could just say it right now. What did you say? Did you say roses? Maybe kind of flower? Maybe there's something else that you think is especially beautiful. Maybe you just love math, and every time you see a Christmas tree, it reminds you of a triangle. Whatever it is. Some of them look pretty, but don't touch, right? Whatever it is. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this and you learned something, because like I say, it's so important for you to learn something new every day. So you take care. And hang in there. Keep learning. Give your best 100%, even when it's hard. And learn something new every day. Bye.